The Serpent and the Sister Ophelia. Plot. The film opens with a pregnant woman lying in bed. She wakes up and realizes her husband is missing. She gets up and leaves her house in the darkness to search for him. Once in the yard, she runs into a tree and hits something, her head. She turns around to see what she hit and realizes her husband was hanging there. Immediately, she falls to the ground, and an entity takes over her body, its tongue forks like a snake. In the following scene, we see a nun riding a bus. She is reading a book containing the names of demons. She gets off the bus and immediately goes to find the local church. The nun walks through the streets of a typical Mexican town, lined with street vendors, until she reaches the church. In the church, she finds Father Victor arguing or trying to mediate an argument between two locals. A man who claims to be the ejido commissioner, a figure who is the highest authority in the ejido, and a private individual who argues that he doesn't have to listen to the ejidatario, while the commissioner argues that he has to listen to him because some ejidatarios have come to complain about him. The priest tries to mediate, but without success. They then introduce themselves to the nun. The nun's name is Ophelia. The priest immediately asks her for a book he had asked for. The nun looks for it and gives it to him. But before that, the nun gets a big scare from a woman with marks on her face. She sees her talking with the priest and then asks, "Who is that woman?" The priest tells her the less she knows, the better. The nun goes to a kind of dining room where she meets a girl and they begin to talk. The girl asks if she can bless water. Ophelia says no. The girl asks why not. The nun replies because there are things nuns can't do. Then Ophelia asks why she wants holy water. The girl tells her she wants to know what holy water tastes like. The nun sees her drawing something and asks what she drew. The girl says it's a snake she saw. Ophelia looked at the drawing and the snake is very strange. Later, the nun is told that the priest is missing. She immediately begins a search for the priest. The nun meets with the police station and asks him about the priest, but he doesn't know anything either. He offers her a ride in his truck to look for the priest. They find him in a remote house in the woods. He is badly injured. The father just whispers something that makes no sense: "If you don't know how to fight her, she will destroy you." Fabian, the commissioner, hears noises and goes to see what the noise is. The nun also walks and finds the book she had previously given to the priest. She then goes looking for Fabian and finds him. The two hear the noise of an animal in the woods. The nun asks him, "What is that?" Fabian tells her he doesn't know, but that it's definitely not from this world. After that, they see a woman dressed in white, there in the woods, also walking. Fabian says it's Sandra, a pregnant woman, the woman we saw at the beginning of the film. The nun stays there praying, waiting for Fabian to return. The nun finds Fabian lying there in the woods and asks him what happened to him. He only says, "It was her." Then they see a fire starting and go to see. There they find Sandra in the middle of a bonfire. The nun asks Sandra what's going on. She asks if they should go back to the house. The woman replies that she isn't Sandra. The nun asks if she isn't Sandra, who she is, what her name is. Sandra replies that she has many names. After that, she starts hitting herself in the stomach and throws herself face down on the ground, moving like a snake. When she reaches a tree, she stands up again and hits herself in the stomach. The nun tells her that she won't hurt her, the woman, or her baby. Sandra says that the baby isn't hers and that they don't know what they're getting into. Then Ophelia sees an apparition, a man who tells her, "Don't get involved in this." Sandra hits her head against a tree and falls face down. Ophelia takes the opportunity to approach the woman and say a few prayers while the woman rides until she finally stops making noises and moving. Sandra spits acid and burns the grass. They took Sandra to a bedroom and called a doctor. The doctor examined her and said she was fine, although it would be best to take her to the hospital. They had to care for her there since she wouldn't survive the transfer for the time being. The doctor asks what happened, but no one could answer. The father survives and tells Ophelia that he believed the book would help him expel the demon inside Sandra, a demon that feeds on pregnant women and babies. The father continues desperately searching for a method or a way to get rid of this demon, but Ophelia tells him that she already got rid of it. The father, upset, asks her what she did, Ophelia tells him that she expelled it and that it's no longer inside Sandra. The father tells Ophelia that he doesn't know what he's done, that the demon hasn't left, that he's regaining strength to finish what he started. He tells her that Fabian is in danger and that he must go get him to bring him to the church. Ophelia goes to look for Fabian at his house in the middle of the forest. When she arrives, she starts yelling at him, but no one comes out. All around, all the grass is dry, as if the life has been sucked out. The snake leaves everything in its path dry. Since Fabian hasn't left the house, Ophelia goes inside. Very carefully, she begins to search the house. The plants inside are completely dry. Just then, a hand grabs Ophelia's foot. She realizes it's Fabian. He's lying on the ground, unable to move. With what I'd call supernatural strength, Ophelia manages to get Fabian to his feet and carry him outside. As she's leaving the house, windows and doors try to close, but fortunately, she manages to hold the door so she can get out. Outside the house, she throws Fabian onto the dry grass and drags him to the green grass. Fabian can be seen with very red eyes and almost lifeless. He's no longer breathing. He goes to the well for some water, fills a bucket, and begins to give it to her little by little with his hand. When Fabian comes to, he drinks water himself. Ophelia asks him what happened. Fabian replies that he doesn't know, but that he felt like he was drying up inside. Ophelia prepares to go back in, but this time she ties herself up with a rope while Fabian stops her. Fabian tells her it'd be better if he goes inside, but she says no, because if he falls back inside the house, she won't be able to get him out. She was able to the first time, but she doesn't think she can do it again. Fabian says they shouldn't take any risks, and gives her a tool to unscrew the door and pull it down. So Ophelia goes in, but they didn't count on the snake having its own plan. It began to tangle the rope. Suddenly, Ophelia began to feel the rope being pulled. She was carrying a bottle of water, and it began to burn. When the bottle was completely empty, it exploded and cut her hand. She yelled at Fabian not to pull the rope. Fabian told her he wasn't doing anything. That's when she realized she was being pulled toward a curtain. When she reached the curtain, it fell on her and covered her mouth, suffocating her. Fabian realizes everything and begins to pull her with great effort. He ties the rope to the truck to pull her, but he doesn't have the keys, so with another superhuman effort, he begins to pull her until he gets her out of the house. Once outside the house, he removes the plastic, and then Ophelia can breathe again. The two return to the church to look for the priest. Fabian asks her if the priest could fight this entity. She tells him he would be the only one who can. At the church doors, they find the same woman Ophelia had seen before with marks on her face. The woman tells them there is something wrong with Sandra. Ophelia tells her there is nothing wrong with Sandra. Fabian also explains that Sandra was just a sick woman and that she is well now. But the woman replies that she saw the child and that she knows that the father and Ophelia herself also saw it. She then tells them that when she was caring for Sandra the day before, Sandra transformed into a snake and burned her neck, and shows them the burns she had. She told them that the woman was a demon. Fabian and Ophelia enter the church, leaving everyone there at the church doors, in a great commotion. Ophelia finds the father sitting on the floor looking for something in a book. The father says the serpent is searching for the strength to return to Sandra's body, but it needs a lot of water to grow stronger. That's why he dries everything out. Ophelia asks him why he's searching for Sandra. The father tells her he's searching for pregnant women, and Sandra is the only pregnant one there. He also tells her that she has 2 sunsets to return to Sandra's body. Otherwise, she'll be defeated and eliminated completely. But if she manages to enter Sandra's body again, great tragedies will ensue. The father shows her 35 names for the demon in the book, but one is missing, so she has to trick him into telling her the number 36. Only now he can't speak, he has to wait until he regains speech. Fabian comes in to get the nun to show her something. He tells her about the curtain that was about to suffocate her. Ophelia looks at the curtain and can see marks like the skin of a snake. She asks if it's the skin of a snake, and he says they're scales. They immediately see a figure at the top of the church. It was Victor, who jumped into the void. Deeply distressed, Ophelia is there praying when a woman arrives and tells her that they spoke to the diocese and asked for her, but despite her telling them she was deeply distressed, they told her that Ophelia had to call a number. They also said they were going to send an expert to take charge. Later, Ophelia receives a call from Sandra, telling her about what happened and blaming herself for it. Fabian and Ophelia head to Fabian's house. Ophelia goes back inside looking for the snake. She turns on the faucet, and this time, instead of spewing out dirty water, it spewed out completely clean water. She immediately goes outside, and Fabian asks what happened. She tells him it's not there, it's gone. They start looking on a map. They put the skin they had removed from the snake in front of them and realize it had traced its path. "What is she looking for?" asks Fabian. Ophelia replies that it used to be water, now it's trying to regenerate itself, for its battle against it. The creature heads towards Mr. Ramirez's house, the same one who at the beginning of the film was arguing with Fabian. Ophelia arrives and scares Margarita, the lady of the house, when she sees her through the window. She tells her to let her in to protect her. Margarita asks, "Protect her from whom?" Mr. Ramirez also comes out and gets very angry when he sees Fabian. With an axe in hand, Mr. Ramirez goes for a shotgun and warns them that if they don't leave, he will shoot them. The creature arrives and attacks Mr. Ramirez. Ophelia tells Margarita that she wanted to protect her from the devil. Margarita tells Ophelia that she doesn't want to hurt Sandra. That she just wanted to help her. Something very strange. Ophelia takes the opportunity to enter the house and check on Mr. Ramirez. When she finds him, she realizes that he is blind. And immediately, Mr. Ramirez starts shooting at them because he doesn't know who he's listening to. Ophelia and Fabian flee from there and run into Margarita. She can't speak, her mouth is closed. Fabian tells Margarita that she has to go with them, but Margarita ignores him and goes in search of Mr. Ramirez. When she finds him, Mr. Ramirez is pointing the gun. Fabian and Ophelia leave the house, a gunshot is heard. When the cameras return, we can see Margarita lying there with a gunshot wound and Mr. Ramirez regretting having shot. Ophelia realizes that the creature can now see and speak, so now they can ask its name. Fabian takes Ophelia to an abandoned chapel. When they enter, they can see the remains of some kind of ritual, a dead animal, blood, and candles. Fabian asks what all that is, and Ophelia replies that it's witchcraft. A child's crying is heard. Fabian examines it and sees a blanket with a bundle. When he lifts it, he can only see a bunch of cockroaches coming out. The snake arrives at the chapel, and Ophelia and she begin a kind of argument. The snake tells her that it knows her secret and why she left her town. The snake attacks Fabian and slams him against the wall. Afterward, Ophelia begins to recite some psalms as if it were an exorcism, and the snake begins to attack her. The snake possesses Fabian and he fights Ophelia. She reaches for a jar of water that she had previously blessed and throws it at the snake. Ophelia recovers and takes Fabian out of the church and jams the door, locking the snake inside. But Fabian is badly injured. She tells him she has to go to the hospital while she heads to Sandra's house. Fabian tells her he won't abandon her, but she tells him she has to go, that she'll move faster than the snake, since the snake moves in circles and she would go straight there. Fabian agrees and heads to the hospital, while Ophelia goes alone to Sandra's house. The snake chases her, without catching her, it moves in circles. Ophelia arrives with Sandra and asks her for something to write on. She writes the 36 names of the demons and that she was able to get the last one in the church. They stick the papers around the house and prevent the snake from entering when it arrives. Sandra confesses that it's all her fault, since she couldn't have children and was singled out, so she asked Margarita for help, and together they performed rituals in the abandoned church. Ophelia replies that the snake is a very ancient entity and she has nothing to blame for it. She tells him she knows what he's going through. She grew up in a similar town and ran away, confessing that her stepfather abused her and forced her to have an abortion. Sandra says that when she got pregnant, she felt happy, but she noticed changes in her husband, David. He became ill. It was as if he were wasting away from the inside, until everything we saw at the beginning of the film happened. An elegant car arrives and the bishop gets out. The bishop asks Ophelia to let him in, but she refuses. The bishop complains about why people in town are saying a nun is fighting the devil. He states that it's all absurd and that he should let him in immediately. Ophelia firmly responds that she won't let him in. Sandra asks what's going on, and Ophelia tells him it's the snake trying to get in. They look out the window and see nothing and no one there. While they're cooking, Sandra hears David's voice and asks him to let him in. Sandra asks him where he is, since she can't see him. He replies that he's by the tree in front of the house. But Ophelia tells him not to pay attention to the voices, it's no one, because she can't hear anything. Someone knocks on the door and Ophelia realizes it's the doctor who also wants to come in. Ophelia refuses to open it, but the doctor is very insistent because Sandra needs attention. Sandra doesn't make things easy and starts screaming. The doctor also screams to be let in. Ophelia doesn't know what to do. Sandra's water breaks and Ophelia risks opening the door. The doctor comes in, but behind him appears Julia, the same woman who at the beginning of the film was talking to the father with her marks on her neck. Ophelia wants to close the door, but Julia puts her foot and prevents it from closing. Ophelia asks the doctor why that woman is there. The doctor replies that she is a friend of Sandra's who is worried. Julia insists on being let in, looks at the papers and asks what all that is. Ophelia replies that she wouldn't understand, that it would be better if she left, but Julia is insistent and keeps asking what all those names are, until she recognizes one of them, Lilitu. Julia says that it is the name of a demon. Ophelia says that it is all to protect Sandra. Julia asks how she is going to protect herself from a demon with demon names. Julia tears out a sheet and Ophelia asks her not to do anything. Julia says that she knows very well what kind of rights they are because she knows well the witch who was in there, referring to Sandra. Julia tears the paper and everything goes out of control. The first thing that happens is that Julia is eliminated, smashing her against the window from the outside, then the doctor. Ophelia takes Sandra out and puts her in the truck to take her to the hospital. She asks her to write the names she will give her and then tape them around the truck. But with the movement and labor, nothing is easy for Sandra. When Sandra finally finishes, a huge bull with large horns appears on the road. Ophelia brakes, and Sandra crashes into the front of the dashboard, injuring her forehead. Ophelia cuts through the undergrowth. But the same man from before reappears, who she assumes is her stepfather. Ophelia accelerates to run over him, but she goes up and then falls on the roof of the car. The entity begins to tear at the roof, trying to get in. Ophelia finally gets out onto a highway and immediately arrives at the hospital. She gets out of the truck and it is already dark. She takes a few steps trying to enter the hospital, but she faints. She wakes up inside the hospital with a nurse at her side. Ophelia asks for Sandra and is led to her. First she meets Fabian and they hug. Ophelia sees Sandra holding her baby and asks what his name will be, and Sandra says it will be Victor. Sandra laments that she won't see him grow up, but Ophelia says she doesn't know, that she's starting to like the town. The nurse mentions that Victor is a beautiful boy and that it's a big event to have 2 births after so long without one. Ophelia asks why 2. The nurse tells her that another woman from a town about 50 kilometers away also arrived in the early morning and had a baby girl. Ophelia goes to the other woman and introduces herself as someone who lives in the town and asks what the baby's name will be. They tell her it will be Lily. Ophelia, very upset, takes a glass of water. She blesses the water and asks the mother with a smile if she can bless Lily. The film ends here, leaving us wondering what happened at the end. Comments. From my perspective, I think everything is fine because the serpent sought to return to the body from which it was expelled. That is, I think the other mother and the baby would be safe. It's also said that it would seek to incarnate a child. So I think it wouldn't make sense to return to a body it had never been in or possess a baby it had never possessed. I think it was seeking Victor and Sandra from the beginning, and it had to be that way by the will of the legend or the myth. So the film ends, I think, well, good one. Or what do you think? Let me know your comments. I thank you very much. Bye.